Sometimes without knowing, you might be not following the regulations.
It's the same thing with AI. It's going to be something like that where a team member is trying to do something quicker, faster, and unfortunately it gets in the model and a sponsor gets real mad and sues you. And that's the end. I mean, for a small site, that's the end for you. That's it. You won't survive that.
That's true.
Without further ado, maybe we can have a quick introduction. I think everybody knows Edye, whoever in clinical research space, have heard about her or have interacted with her uh, one way or another. With me personally, of course, I have known Edye for more than 2 years now. And since last year, having really had a conversation with her, we chatted just in general, and we really, we just connected, and we both are really champions of everything what we're doing each other's side, and we're connected in the clinical research space. And today we figured let's find out more about Edye in terms of humans of clinical research. What is her human side? What is her journey of being part of this clinical research?
Well, thank you for having me. I was gonna say it goes right back to you. I remember following your content and loving it on LinkedIn and being like I honestly just wanted it was like the right balance of funny while still making a point, which is kind of what I at least try to dance around. You know what I mean? Like, let's still post something that's substantive, but like at the same time, we can do it with some punch. And I just remember being like, who is this? And where are these posts coming from? Like, I gotta follow this person to figure out. And then I started hearing Stryde in the conversation. And then me being me, I'm like, hi, I need to know you. Like, you're in my backyard. So which is why everyone in clinical trials knows that about me. I'll go up and talk to anyone and network with anyone because, hey, if you're doing something in this space, we should all be part of it together and we should all know about it. And I think the more we know about each other, then we know when to pick up the phone, when to refer to each other, how to help each other out. So no, I appreciate that every time I do that to people because a lot of times people ghost me. Or they just think I'm nuts, and that's fair. It's totally fair. But no, you were willing to pick up the phone and have a conversation and honestly be really candid about what you guys are working on and what some of the pain points have been, as well as some of the champion moments, right? And I think it's amazing. I believe, as I said to you at the time, I'm also not sure how you work with your partner because I don't think I could do that. So I have a lot of respect for you guys on a very personal level too, because you can either do it, or you can't. My husband and I are like, nope, nope, that is not for us. Like, no, no, no.
Yeah,
I'll tell you all about that in a little bbit, maybe.
Oh, please do. It's hard, but at the same time, if you're both in the industry and you're both passionate about it, and it can be such a powerful team because you know each other in a very different way. But my husband and I could also fight over how we're going to cook a meal, like it's the last meal that's ever going to be cooked. So
that we still do.
That's what I'm saying. We need a whole podcast maybe just on that.
Just on it. Well, because you totally see it in the industry. You either see people who are like, I don't do the same thing as my partner. You don't really hear them talk about it. It's just truly a them situation. Or you see people who are like you guys, who are like truly a team and there's no separating it. And if you know one, you know the other. And it's like, you're always seeing them together. And I just think that's really interesting. Like I said, I think that's a really interesting dynamic. Not a lot of folks can pull that off, especially in a high stress environment that we live in, like all day, every day.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. I mean, I don't know if we've really had a lot of opportunity to deeply talk since I started the firm. That's really the biggest thing that's changed.
That's true.
In the last few months, it's been a big change. Everyone's like, so how long was this brewing? And I'm like, like an hour. This was like the least planned decision I've made in a very long time. And I'm not really like that professionally. But it was just.
But those are to be the best ones sometimes. So
it is, right? It was one of those. I was telling Dan Sparrow this the other day. It was one of those where it was like, I've been happy where I've been. I haven't had a bad run. You know what I mean? I don't have anything negative to say about anywhere I've been. I've had great success. I've had awesome clients. I've had great firms that I've been attached to. Like, no complaints. And I just was like, yeah, I've got this family life. I've got a demanding work life. I don't know that I want to add business owner to that. That's just sounds really intimidating. And I know and have a lot of respect for how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. I grew up with one as a parent. And so it was just very like, no. And then it just kept coming up in different ways. Like it was like my husband would bring it up and he's not in the industry at all. And I'm like, why are you bringing it up? And he's like, I just think you want more than what you're doing. Like I hear
Right.
you when you talk to me versus when you talk to your clients. And I'm like, really? I don't feel unhappy. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, I'm not saying you're unhappy. Just
It's
you've
just
done this
in
for
you,
20
right?
years. What's the
Sometimes it's
next
just like
20
you're
years?
right.
Right.
Right. And that was honestly, that was the wildest part about it all. Is like as I started seeing people at conferences in the fall and like this was happening and it was off to the races, almost everyone I ran into had a very, it's about darn time response. And I was like, really? Like, did everyone know this and I didn't? Like, which, I mean, that's a huge compliment. Like, I couldn't have gotten more support in the launch. And for me, it was just about, man, I have these great firms, but understandably, firms want to work with sponsors. They want to work with CROs. They view
Right.
that as where the credibility lies. They view that as where the money lies. Like, I get it completely. But I have just fallen in love with the work that I've gotten to do with sites, albeit
Mhm.
might be an academic site, might be an independent site, all sizes, shapes, forms, and the vendors. If you would have told me 10 years ago I would be spending so much time working with vendors in this space, I mean, I really wouldn't have believed you. I would have like checked your temperature. But it's a huge part of the business.
It
And
is.
it's super important, right? Because we have access now to a lot of technology, and that was before AI, and of course AI is a whole nother layer. And to me, it's it's a good thing that we have people from outside industries trying to come in and look at our issues, problems, pain points a different way. Now, granted, I know sometimes they flood the market, sometimes they don't have best intentions, and I completely concur with that. But
Right.
when the ducks are in the row and they're listening and they go, hey, sites, I want to make this easier for you. Hey, vendor, I want to make this easier for you. Hey, sponsor, I want to make this better for you. Their main obstacle is compliance. And it's usually what they don't even know, honestly. Like
Right.
they don't even
Right.
know they're misstepping. And some of them fly by night and it happens and they don't, everything kind of goes okay. Some of them fall
Yeah.
apart because of it. And I hate seeing it because it's like, okay, but this might be that next solution. This might be that next amazing piece of technology that we were missing,
Right.
and I don't want to fall apart over a validation issue. I don't want to fall apart
Yeah.
over an SOP compliance issue. Like those are things you
Right.
can fix. Like you
Agree.
can do that. But also, to be fair, if you're coming from a complete other industry that handles that type of issue completely different than we do, why would you know about it? Like
Right.
you wouldn't. You need help. And it's the same thing that you do at sites where you go like, look, your time PI is well spent with patients. Nurse, same thing. Coordinator, same thing. Let me take some of that off of you. Let me worry about that contract. Let me worry about that legal concern or that legal opinion or how we're going to respond to that sponsor so you could focus on what you do best. I'll focus on what I do best, and we'll be a team together to get it done, right? And that's what we do with the vendors, but it's also very different. Like the team I'm building,
Right.
I've had to make sure I kind of either they've already worked with me on some of these and they know, or I kind of bring them in for almost like a trial period, more because I'm like, this is going to be real different than anything you've done. This is not just straight site compliance or straight
No.
sponsor compliance. This is in the weeds and it's murky, and sometimes it applies, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, like, and you got to help them figure that out, and you got to
Right.
Yep.
make not just legal advice to them as a vendor or regulatory or compliance. You also have to put yourself in the shoes of they're like a growing company. They might be a
Right.
startup with limited resources. They might
Right.
already have hit big and they've been doing business a certain way. So if you suddenly come in and say you've got to change everything, that could disrupt their business model, or
Yep.
it could make their current clients uncomfortable and they might drop, and that could be a financial disaster for them. So like you can't just go, well, the rule is, GCP says. It's never that simple. It's never
No.
that
Right.
simple. And so
Right.
Right.
like that's where I tell my team, I'm like, I know what the answer is. I know what GCP says. I know what FDA says. We all do. What
Right.
I want to know is how are we going to reach that level of
Right.
compliance for this particular client without XYZ resource?
Right.
Or by the way, they need this yesterday. Or by the way, they actually already did this and they didn't tell us. And so we're in a
Now we're
reactive
gonna
state. So now we're going to have to move quite quickly,
right.
faster than you normally would with like a research site or a sponsor, because they're
But
tech, they're forward.
but Eddie, based on your now, right? So I think in general, right? So when we start, I think we talked last year summer
Yeah.
when we were looking as a
For
site.
some reason, I have a
So
very vivid recollection of us talking while I was at the lake this summer. I don't know why,
yeah,
but I'm like I
yeah,
remember like sitting outside talking to you for some reason.
and
Go
and
figure.
and no, and you're right. So that time we were actually looking at that because you're right. When as a site, we all us included, maybe if you talk last year or before last year, that
Mhm.
we always think as an after effect, meaning you look at compliance. Not compliance is regular, right? But maybe lawyer or maybe a QA or FDA auditor, you usually think that as a like, okay, if you have any audit, then you need to look for them, or
Mhm.
you need to look for as an after effect that okay, there is an issue and now more like have a corrective actions,
Right.
but rather than preventive action. And Dipali, and because of maybe her background in CRO world, where CRO usually have this, like they have usually have a quality group and then
Right.
all of this as a part of it. And because of her background, she was always like, okay, we need to have it as soon as we have SOP, as soon as we have all this everything going, we need to have external person come in and do the audit and make sure if you're on the right path or if you have any
Right.
issues. And that's where we kind of working to kind of continuous, right? It's not like
Yeah.
we had done one time, we got the glory marks, but it's not that necessarily for all the sites we are following that.
But it's
So
also different perspective too, right? Like
right.
different objective, because they
Mhm.
also come with a different focus in their mind. They're not just going to come with just one. It could be different. Could be
Yep.
data integrity. It could be just a patient recruitment. It could be too many screen failure, depending on what they are looking at
Yep.
and based on what they're selecting to come to your site and to look more in depth. So I think it really, we as a site have to cover pretty much everything. So that audit readiness is something is really important, and the compliance goes, of course, long way
And
there.
I think it's very hard for vendors. Again, you do want some level of people coming from outside your industry to inside your industry to have that, in my opinion, my humble opinion, diversification, right? Like I'm very big on that because they're going to bring a different skill set, different problem solving approaches, different resources, the whole nine yards, right? So this is a positive for the industry, again, with some tapering. And so for me, I want to be able to stand there, and to be fair, most of the vendors I work with are like this, where they're like, look, I can tell this particular sponsor doesn't like that we're doing X, or we're getting a negative response. What I'm not entirely clear on is why is that such a problem? Because for the tech side of things, it's not. This is how this is how we make the bread. This is how it works. We're not hiding anything. We're completely, SOC 2 compliant, ISO compliant. Like, we think this is a great idea. We're reaching an objective faster, but we can tell by everyone in the room, no one's cool with this, and we don't know why. And like, you need to give them some context. You need to go, well, as an auditor, here's what I'm thinking when I see this, or here's what I think set that sponsor off and made them nervous in that conversation, and be able to walk them through it. Because what I've found is these vendors are ridiculously smart, right? And so once you give them the information and you sort of clue them in of like, well, this is actually a regulation and here's how it's enforced, or maybe it's just an industry standard. And it's like, yeah, I know you can't find this written down anywhere because it's sort of one of those unspoken accepted
Right.
standards. So let me fill you in on the context. This is where it comes from. This is what sites usually think about it. This is what, sponsors are thinking. And then as soon as you do, light bulbs on. And they are back off to the races with, some other amazing idea, some other amazing, new build to what they were already doing, some new solution. And it's like, that's all they needed. They just needed that piece of the puzzle plugged in to then like keep going. You know what I mean? And how cool is it that you get to be there for that? Like the brainstorming I get to do with some of the folks in the industry is, I mean, I'm a huge nerd. Everybody knows this about me, but it is fun. And it's not just like the sites where you get to see all these studies and all these different approaches, all the amazing things that patients have now, if they're, willing to come on this journey with us. But the vendors, you actually get to see and hear about ideas that may never hit the market. You know what I mean? You're basically trying them on for size. And as long as you can handle it, sometimes that's, Saturday afternoon or late Monday night, because that's when they had their moment of inspiration or they're in a different time zone. You know what I mean? Like it's a blast. It's fun. Like that is not something you're ever going to get taught in law school. It's not something I can promise you'll ever do in practice. It's not something I even entirely thought I'd do 5 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's very kind of new, I think. And what my team is telling me as I'm working with them is like, that's part of the draw is
Right.
I've already worked in this industry. I've already done auditing. I've already done contracts. I've already done whatever these pieces are. Like, am I perfect at every single one? No. Do I still have room to learn? Of course. But this is a whole new animal. This is a whole new problem to solve in a completely different environment. And so this is just fun. It makes my brain actually have to like work and in a good, really positive, collaborative way. Or like we sit down as a team and go, okay, we know what the client wants. How the heck do we get there, guys? And we all go, but that to me is the fun part. I mean, right?
Right.
Like when you have that and you get to the other side of it, and I want to hear you guys talk a little bit about Stride and what you guys are experiencing with vendors too, because that's another big piece of it. Like me being able to have sites and folks like yourself, whether it's actually in my client book or in my network, when I have those vendors go, well, so what is the pain point for this? Why? And I'm like, it shouldn't come from me. Let me connect you to, let me connect you to, let me connect you
Actual
to,
source.
because they need end user information.
Right.
And I can give them the summary. Like, look, everybody hates it because of ABC. But I want them to get the details. I want them to go through it with someone at that site going, if you're really serious about making this better, I will spend some time with you, helping
Right.
you. And that's kind of my deal with them, is like, I will set you up with the people that I trust in my network if I've vetted that you're serious and you're going to treat our industry well and you're in it for, the good positive reasons. I don't mean don't make money. I just mean you're willing to actually understand you're taking someone at a site's time away from their paid, billable daily activities with patients that are very serious and time sensitive. So like, don't waste their time if you're not really serious about this, and if
Right.
you're not really going to listen and you're not really going to engage. But once you are, let's go, let's do it. And it is, like I said, it's just a blast. Some of the folks out there are just so darn smart, and what they're bringing from other industries or what they did before they tried to tackle a problem here is really interesting to see them try to apply it and see if it works. You know what I mean? Sometimes
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah. That's
So,
true.
I'm going to pull you back in a little because we went to the crux of exactly what our industries and, how the compliance
Oh yeah,
and,
I dive right in, right?
you can hear the passion and all of that. What I want to know, Edye, is that how did you choose this particular industry to enter? And again, as I said, like I'm pulling you back a little because I want
No,
to
you're
know
fine.
what
You're totally
sparked-
fine.
Right.
Yeah, it's so I love telling the story because it's so not what people think. I actually went to law school fully intending to do international human rights law. Even graduated law school, hadn't taken a single health law class. Could have told you what clinical research is broadly. Knew that clinical
Right.
trials existed because I grew up in a medical family, so I'm biased and privileged in that regard. In fact, the joke used to be that my dad was on so many clinical trials when he was on med school to pay his way through that by the time he had kids one day, my mother had met him in med school, that she was worried, like, what might happen, like when they procreated. And I'm like, I only came out with 4 eyes and like 2 antenna. And, it was just like this family joke, right? So I knew about the industry, and I was at a law school that featured health law. I was already at the IU Academic Medical Center, which of course is massive in our industry as far as academia goes. But that wasn't what I was there for. I was spending all my time overseas working with the United Nations, and I just genuinely, serendipitously graduated during a recession. And I had 9 months before my next guaranteed job opportunity. And I had a very good colleague and friend from law school who had gotten serendipitously pulled into this world. She knew she wanted to do health law, and she got an internship at an IRB, started working in like privacy compliance, really loved it, knew I had 9 months, and said, there's this IRB consultant job. It's a contract, it's 9 months. You don't have to lie that you're going to leave, but it's got to be better than whatever else you have going on for the next 9 months. And I was like, you are correct. And that was it. It was going to be 9 months. Everybody knew it. I was leaving. We had a date all lined out, and it was a serious compliance situation. So they were bringing in a lot of extra help, consultants and outside help. And it was, the problem had already been detected and a remedy put into place, but it was the finishing touches. And a lot of that included, unfortunately, having to ask faculty who had not done anything wrong. This was not their error. This was an administration error, to stop their research, hold back an IRB approval that we had given them, and start from the beginning, reapprove their research, and then let them start again. And so that would put pause on their research, and they didn't do anything to deserve that, and they're upset. They're really upset. And so that was literally my job, was to go give them the bad news. And while giving them the bad news, also be like, but I'm here to write your IRB application and help you like fix the problem. Like, let's put a positive spin on it. And I don't know if they thought I would like cry every day or what would happen. But it didn't, I don't know how to describe it. I interacted with several faculty members who it was anticipated would be a very difficult and terse situation. And afterward, they went out of their way to tell the administration that while it was unpleasant, of course, it was the way I approached it and handled it that made it work so well. And
Nice.
it was one of those situations where no one else could talk to those particular faculty members very well.
So you're
But
it.
for me, so of course, then it was like, well, shoot, if she can talk to so-and-so, let's send her to so-and-so, let her handle that. And so at the end of the 9 months, I got offered a position, and I had very much fallen in love with the industry. It was a bit like coming home. I mean, all the medical terminology and being around the world was like, I was very familiar with that. I was very comfortable with that, and stayed at IU, and then began my little journey for the next 10 years there, where I went around and basically tried to absorb as much knowledge as I could, starting in grants and contracts, moving into their human research protection program, helping build IRB, quality, auditing, research integrity offices, clinical
So you
research
lived in,
compliance offices.
you
Oh
lived
yeah,
in, yeah.
I lived it. It was great. And then I realized I was probably going to leave, and we're based in Indianapolis. And so Lilly is your other major clinical
Yeah.
trials employer if you don't want to leave the city. Well, Lilly doesn't need an HRPP program. They're a sponsor. They're not an academic. They're not a site. They didn't need anything that I had to offer. And by now I've like bought a house, married a guy from here. Like, I'm like, whoa, I think I committed a little too soon here. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I went over to the Comprehensive Cancer Center, the NCI Designated Cancer Center at IU. And I was like, you're basically a site. You're a huge site with a whole lot of extra because you're academic and because you're federally funded. You need compliance help. Every cancer center does. That's not like me throwing shade. You know me from across the street. You've worked with me for years, and I know your pain points. I need site experience if I'm ever going to be able to leave and stay employed in this town in a way that I want to and do what I want. And then it was like I fell in love all over again. Like when I got to where I was finally in a clinic and I was actually like having conversations with PIs, not on a phone and not in an IRB meeting, but like they're literally pulling me into a conversation, patients in a room, they're trying to make an eligibility decision and they're calling me in going, I want to save this person's life. I think this is the way. Can you tell me how strict are we on this criteria? Like, I know clinically what it means, but I need compliance wise, what does it mean? Because I have to make a decision and I need to know. And it was invigorating. I don't know how any other way to describe it. It was like the first time I was like, man, do I want to go to medical school? Like, this is amazing. Like, this is, and you walked through the hospital every day. Like I always told my staff, if you think you're having a bad day, go sit in one of our oncology clinic waiting rooms. And then like, please come tell me you're having a bad day. Please, I dare you. And so it was also you felt connected. As a lawyer, I mean, you're not seeing the patients. You feel like you're 8 buildings away. They don't know you even exist. They have no idea how you contributed. And it's not about getting glory, but you do want to see what ends up happening. You do want to see the fruit of your labor and you want to know you make a difference. And so that was it. I stayed there for a little, long enough to get some really good experience. And then after that, when I left and started consulting, I just kept gravitating towards sites. And it was academic sites and cancer centers, which makes sense. And then smaller, more independent sites became a new and bigger thing. This is right as you're having like Brad Hightower and Dan Sfera, and like this is all starting to really rise up. And it was like, well, if they're not at an academic medical center, man, they can cut all this red tape. They can move so much faster. They have a thumb on their patients. They won't miss their catchment area because we always knew. I mean, academic medical centers are almost always in metro hubs, and you're missing anyone out of the metro hub. And in Indianapolis is the only metro hub. That's it. The rest of the state is rural. And so we know we're missing significant catchment area, and it weighs on those PIs. They don't like that. That does not make anyone happy, but there's only so much you can do about it. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these independent sites can come in. They'll augment. They're not going to steal from the AMC. AMC is not going to steal from them. This is a win. But the sponsors are going to need to know they can trust them because the sponsors are so used to the AMC way things are done. And a small independent site, why would you have a full-time general counsel? Why would you have a full-time reg team? Why would you have a full-time billing team? Like, there'd be no reason for all that. You need someone fractionally that you can call when you need to, but not all the time, right? And so it was like, well, that makes sense. And then I just started, like I said, it just organically started happening. And then that was the same way vendors happened. Some of the vendors that my sites were starting to work with, my sites would ask me about, like, I need you to kind of do a sniff test. I want to make sure I can work with them. And so I'd reach out and be like, hey, they're paying for it. What are you willing to share with me? It's, underprivileged. And then they'd figure out they were missing something and go, can I hire you? Is that a conflict? Because like, I'm glad you pointed that out. I want you to fix it for me. And I'd be like, I mean, as long as my client doesn't object, sure, let's do it. And then it was like, you get one more referral. And then it was, that was that. And so it was just building that type of client book at all these different firms that I was at, which was a blast. But like I said, you still owe the firm that sponsor client. You still owe them that credibility and that name on the wall. And 20 years in, it's not where my heart is. It's just not. I'm lying if I say it is. You know what I mean? It felt like I was going after clients that I knew would be good for the firm, that I knew would be good for my own pocketbook. I would probably not leap out of bed in the morning to service them. And that
Yes.
was I think that was what my husband saw. Do you know what I mean? Like you live
Right.
with someone, you start to kind of see that. It's like, I know you'll do this to make the dollar for the family, and that's great, but like, you're in your 40s. What do you want to do? What do you really want to do?
What you
Like
really like her.
right. Yeah. I mean, and it's that point where you go is like, it'd be worth the risk if you really got to do what you wanted, the way you wanted, with who you wanted, for the
Right.
clients you wanted, like all those pieces. So do it. And I told Dan Sparrow the other day, oh my gosh, I totally told my husband he was like completely crazy. And to be fair, he's in financial services. He's an actuary, so he's very good. He has a business degree. Like,
Right.
yeah. So for me to be like, you're crazy, like is pretty loaded. And so then I call my father, who's of course in the industry, has been an entrepreneur in the industry. And I'm like, talk your crazy son-in-law out of this mad idea. And he was like, no, I think it's a great idea. I think he's absolutely right. And I was like, and that was when I was like, okay, I think if the two people who I know are like that seriously invested in me, and I also know have that kind of business acumen, I've seen what I've done for the last, 7, 8 years, coming up on 10 years, and they really think, and especially my husband, I mean, he's betting with the house money here, literally, then like maybe there's something to this. And then I just sat and I really thought, I really did some deep reflection on like, and we had some good talks, like, look, this is going to be different. I'm not going to be able to sign off at 4 every day like I've been able to, because I've kind of gotten into a pattern with my clients. Like, this is going to be some weekend work, some night work. This is going to be probably a lot of travel the first couple years, and I
Right.
haven't done that for a while. And and even to be fair, we even talked about it with our kid. I mean, he's 7.5.
Right.
Like, it's a conversation. He needs to know, and I want him to know if mommy's suddenly gone a lot more. That's not because I just want to go have some fun. There's like a reason for that. And it was really cute. He says to people now, my mommy is not a lawyer anymore. She's a boss. And I did not tell him to say that. I did not in any way tell him to say that. And it is the best. He said it like to some family of ours. And I was like, do you want to like do PR for me, kid? Like, you want to be on my marketing team?
There can be something.
I can tell you, I have
I
a
know,
similar
right?
thing. It's like, okay, the mom is a doctor, but then mom, you do research. Like, you're not exactly a doctor, but then they also take it proud as if like they would come to my clinic sometimes and then they would see patients and all that. And it's like, oh my, and my kid is like 5-year-old right now. So, it's just like, like learning. But at the same time, it's like, okay. And then outside to his friends, it's like, my mom is a doctor. It's like, okay,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
just have to tone it
Like,
down a
take
little.
it down a notch, take it down a notch. Or like, I had to educate. Well, my husband was really funny. He told my son and taught him because he did it. So my husband is the son of an attorney and who was a judge. Very different practice. But so he asked me one day, so why aren't you a real attorney? And this is when we're dating. And I was like, you get one time to say that to me, and that was it. I pass the same bar as everyone else. I do all the same continuing education as everyone else. I
Right.
just happen to have a subspecialty. You wouldn't call your ortho if you were having a pediatric need. So that's no different. I get you don't see it. I get you grew up with the very traditional version. So like, again, one free pass. But if you ever ask me if I'm not a real attorney again, that will be the end of our relationship promptly. And because it's the same thing, right? Like, my son doesn't always understand because he does have other schoolmates who have, an attorney parent, and he's been to his grandfather's courtroom and knows he was a judge and like understands and is like, so why don't you go to a courtroom every day? Like, are you not
Right.
like Gramps? And I'm like, no, I'm not. We went to the same school. We passed the same bar exam, but we do totally different things. Yeah.
Different
And
things.
you know what? That's also cool. Like, that's
It
also
is.
fun. And so, but you can tell it's the same thing though. If I went to his classroom, I'm sure it's like, well, my mom, well, my dad. I'm like,
Yeah.
like, hold on. I don't think you've been to grad school yet, kid. Take it down a notch. I'm not sure you get to take credit for that.
Yep.
True story. So actually, I was almost attorney. I was about to. So my dad is attorney, right? In India, from India. So I always had that connections with law and all of that.
Yep.
And then 2009, I graduated, and my mentor that time from school. So she is like, because So my background is pharmacy. So I was a pharmacist in India. I did my pharmaceutical chemistry. Just he's like, why don't you be attorney more on the patent side? So you do the patent and you do specialize. I'm like, that interesting. And I was actually considering it. I actually looked for other
Well, because you have
options.
to. A lot of folks don't realize you
Yeah,
have to have a science degree to sit for the patent bar. So when my dad
Jericho.
was my dad was a general surgeon and then went back to law school 25
Right.
years in, and was deeply considering patent bar as well because of his
Mhm.
science background. I decided
Right.
not to, went a completely different direction, but really same thing, really thought about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I knew maybe one or two people in my graduating class who were contemplating and sat or had the ability. Not as many as you would think, though. For how many people were at our school to do health law, we didn't have as many as you would think. Now, I will say, as the program's gotten larger, so I got to go back and teach at that program because me being the nerd I am, once I realized this was going to be my path and I hadn't done any of this in law school, it was like, oh, okay, so where do I go learn about all these regulations and laws? And of course, everyone around me was like, well, there's no law school class on this. Like, you have to go read them all and you have to just do the work.
Yep.
And I was like, wait, so I'm sorry. We recruit law students from the campus that we can see across right here from the med school. There's like 15 of us in this office who all graduated from this school, but
Yeah.
we had never taken any classes. We're just expecting people to magically walk in and know. We know everyone we take from over there is smart, but we have to train the heck out of them because they got no exposure to this. Like, why are we doing something about this? So me being me, my colleague and I like worked together to basically start teaching some classes on life sciences compliance at the law school because it was like there's got to
Yeah.
be other people who are interested in
Jericho.
this.
Right. Yeah.
Like, why should we not? And we
No.
want to be a competitive program. So I was actually asked. I just gave the position up about a year and a half ago, but I was actually asked, and for about 6-7 years, acted as their externship experiential learning director. So I would teach the classes that were substantive, but then I was helping pair health law students with local opportunities. Some were very routine, law firm, but actually a lot of them were like with the hospital, with clinical trial units within the hospital, within like the cancer center, things that like no one would have ever thought this is where
Right.
an attorney
There is
actually
a
lives or, does anything.
right. Mhm.
And I will say, as the program got bigger, I saw more and more students come through who had something in their background. I worked in a lab, I was an RN, I at least started med school. Maybe I decided not to finish. I had one student who was doing both. So just all these different like kind of scenarios. So I think it's more common now. And I think, and a lot of them were thinking about patent bar. I mean, I always told them, think about it. It's a
Yeah.
very
Right.
different life than the one I
Yeah.
lead. But if you have the background, you should consider it. Why not?
Yeah. And
It's a very unique area.
Yeah, and it's a better career if you think about it. So now you are
Yeah.
boss lady, right? You're not just a lawyer or attorney.
I keep telling people, I'm
But
like, ask me in 6 months if I still feel good about that.
Another
so,
one, another podcast.
yeah, but there you go. But it's still right. It just gives you that different edge, meaning you are learning,
Well,
you are applying your knowledge of one side into completely different industry,
exactly.
and now you're getting more. Of course, now you know everything. I'm sure for your last 10 years, now you know more about sites
Oh,
than many of the new site owners, right?
yep. And
Yeah.
for me, that was also part of it is like, to be fair, if you are in a super traditional law firm setting, big or
Yeah.
small,
Mhm.
you're really intended to offer legal advice. You're not thought of as an ops person. You're not thought of as a quality person. You're not thought of as, the practical advice giver. You are meant to go, the law
Yeah.
says this, and we interpret it in this way for your needs. Or you're transactional and you're helping them write or execute or redline something. And so I saw, and I still see a lot in the industry where you have individuals in that site space or vendor space who don't know how to find an attorney or a shop like mine or ours, and they do still find a really great attorney, right? Totally minted, 100%, all the bells and whistles, great firm, the national name that everybody knows, right? All the things. But that particular lawyer's advice isn't as practical or actionable as that
Right.
particular client is looking for. Like, they're looking for
Right.
just tell me what to do at the site. Like, do I say yes to
Right.
the audit or do I say no? Do I write
Right.
this down? Do I not write this down? I mean, like granular, really tactical advice. And that's just not always how a law firm approaches that. And so it was also
Right.
a little bit about like, how do I match the firm I'm in to their expectations and what they want me doing and might not want me doing? But also the site part of me that's actually done this is like, okay, but the real thing you should do is, you know what I mean? Like let me give you your
Right.
proper legal opinion, but
Right.
like, by the way, what you should really do is, and it was, again, it was that feeling of like, I want to be more helpful, even if that
Right.
makes me look less formally legal. I'm okay with
Right.
that.
Yeah.
After 20 years, I think my legal career will weather the hit. And I want the clients to walk away with that advice. Like if you really need that proper drafted, very formal, I mean, happy to do it.
Yeah,
We're a law firm.
you can do that, but
But
yeah.
at the same time, that's just not always what you need.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't have time and margins to waste. And
Mhm.
so I want it to be in my site's hands. Like, what do you need? Do you need the formal, legal, super, you know, tough Edie will put on her black suit jacket and a deep red lipstick and we'll get down to business? Or are we going to go, you know, the practical route? And I'll tell you that in the advice too. It's kind of like we we're talking about the vendors and their business case. It's the same thing with the site. It's like, hey, you have every right to push back on the sponsor. You are in the right. And here are all the reasons you're right. And if you want to push back, here's exactly how we'll do it. And here's what I would say. Here's what I would recommend. I can do it for you. I'll empower you to do it however you want to do it. Having said that, this will probably tick them off. I'm not sure if you were planning on doing more business with them. I'm not sure how much you need this trial to continue. So
Right.
I just, this might not be the hill I would die on. I think this is something that you could let go and probably come to an agreement on if you want to keep the relationship viable. If this is it and they've ticked you off and or it's that egregious, then let's go. I'm here.
Right.
What do you want to do? It's your business. It's your name. I'm here to
Right.
advise you. And if you
Makes
say
sense.
we're going all in, then I'm right there, you know, grab the pitchfork. Let's do this. But if you say, no, you're right. I got to preserve this relationship. Okay. So then how about we go about it like this instead? Let's do
Right.
this instead. I think you'll get as much as you need compliance wise out of that without disrupting as many feathers. And
So
it's, again, I want you to have that input and that strategy advice. I don't want it to just be like, well, the law says that HIPAA is not applicable to you.
Right.
Okay.
right.
But what do you do with that information? Like, right?
Right.
You have to rationalize that into something. And like I said, it's not a cut at the attorneys who practice that way at all because they're phenomenal. Hell, most of them are smarter than me, went to all sorts of shiny places that I didn't. So it's not that at all. It's just a different mentality. Once you've
Sure.
been the ops person on the ground, it's very hard to give pie in the sky advice that you know is not practical. Like it just doesn't sit with your soul. You know what I mean? Like you're like I'm going to tell you this, but and I just am the type of person I want to say that out loud. Like I will say, I have a client right now who can tell you, I told them, this is going to blow your mind. Before you start screaming and yelling, promise you'll let me finish. There is a good ending. It's just a rough middle. And then I like explained, you know, what we had to do on something and what the regulatory problem was. And you could tell they were like, oh, and I was like, oh, remember, we're waiting for the ending. Hold on. Like, stick with me. And then we got to the ending and they were like, oh, okay. This isn't
So
as bad as you said, you know, but like also this is going to require some effort. And you're like, see, like, don't kill the messenger. I'm trying to get you there. I'm trying to get you where you want to go. But
yeah.
and you guys get
So
that. I mean, you get that.
you know, I think it's going to be so much fun, and I feel like one podcast is not going to be enough with you, Edye. So many
Thank you.
questions, and I get so much of an insight, and maybe viewers will love it too. But maybe I'll ask you this:
Yeah.
in the last 10 years, based on your experience, even the
Yeah.
smartest sites with a lot of experience, you know, a lot of hands-on and everything, what is that one compliance that they just either choose to ignore or is just not
Yeah.
being looked? Like, is that something that you might
Yep.
be able to point it out? Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Or maybe
Absolutely.
five.
So yeah, right, exactly. So I think there's two like buckets when I think about this. There's what are the ones that tripped the sites up and they really didn't see it coming? Like they did not know what they did not know. And I see them constantly struggling with this issue because there's just a lack of understanding, communication. That I would say for sites is HIPAA. It's still HIPAA, which blows my mind because we've been in
Wow.
this since the 90s. But there is a real misunderstanding of what is HIPAA protected as you move from the clinical record into clinical trials. And it is very much thought that HIPAA applies to clinical trial data quite often when it does not, and creates a much higher burden for sites than is necessary. And so that's one of the areas I come in, especially with vendors, but definitely with sites, and go, let's talk about what you are and are not doing. Like, let's talk about whether or not you're really subject to this, and also whether you're subject to it or not, whether or not your clients are going to expect you to be subject to it. So how can we be smart about this? Because it exposes you to an immense amount of risk to be subject to it. And you might not have to be. Like the vast majority of my vendors don't actually need to be for what they're providing. They don't do it in a way that qualifies for them to be subject to HIPAA. They just thought they did. And so then they said, well, I guess we need to be compliant with it. And then I come in and look at their system and go, well, you're not compliant and you're telling everyone you are. And also, wait, why? You don't need to be. Like, step away. So that's the one that I see over and over that's like, they don't know kind of thing. The one that I see that is, we know and we look the other way, that's a different bucket. To be fair to sites, it's almost always something about resources, turnover, something just sifted through. It's not, I very rarely see people doing things on purpose or truly going, I just am going to ignore this right now without a really good justification why they want to ignore it. And that is usually going to be somewhere in your inspection readiness or your compliance infrastructure. It's always different where it is. You know, it just depends on what you had time to get to or what the person who could help you was good at and wasn't good at maybe. But it's like you have processes that your people know what to do at your site. And you may even have a few of them written down. But if I come through with my auditor, fine-tooth comb, I'm going to make all sorts of findings on you. But the reality is you're not having any problems. So your leadership with constricted resources is like, how do I call Edye Law and spend 20 grand on this right now when it's not on fire? We haven't had a bad audit. We are not worried about patient safety. We're recruiting strong. Sponsors are using us left and right. Like, there's no reason, Edye. There's no reason. And I'm sitting there going, I hear you, but with all that business and attention will come an audit. It is if, it is when, not if. And so like, please, 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 please don't wait. If you want to wait a little while, I understand. I get it. It's a lot of money and resources and time and effort. I do. But if you wait too long, you're going to be calling me for a rescue. And that's a whole different ballgame. And you don't want to be there. You could lose everything. Don't do that. And so it's not so much that it's one area. It's just there's somewhere in that structure. And like I said, it's usually not that they have no process or no way of doing things or that anyone's really in danger per se, right? It's far more, it's not documented. Or it's documented so rudimentary that if an auditor comes in, it's going to be a problem. Like, you know, you can't just have an SOP that says we follow rules. Okay. And what people don't understand, like a lot of folks go, well, if I have less written down, there's less you could hold me to. Like, isn't that the way to stay out of the crosshairs? And I really disagree with that because as an auditor, this is your playbook. This is the only playbook that I have to play by besides the regulations when I come audit you. Did you follow your own policies? If you give me very thin playbook or no playbook, I get to apply my own playbook. And you won't like my version because it won't match your version. I promise. It'll be far more strident.
Yeah.
And so you're really don't have 450 SOPs and lock yourself into a room, like by all means. But that's the issue. That's it. That's what I see time and time again. And that's the finding. It's always the finding. Lack of documentation.
Good point.
Yeah.
So no, I always love to give people practical stuff like that to help them out because that's it. And I always feel bad because sites never want to tell you.
Right. And maybe the last before we part away, but the famous one, AI. I know everything is AI. Like what we used to have, there is an app for everything. Now there is an AI for everything, which is good.
Yep.
But especially the world we are working in, which is all the compliance and regulatory and all of that. So what is your advice, right, for the sites maybe? Yeah.
Absolutely, because I work with so many clients who are using AI. I even went in-house briefly with an AI company in the regulatory space to help them build a product. So like I said, I think it can do a lot of good in this space. I think for the compliance side, most of what you're seeing in terms of AI interventions either are into clinical decision-making with that we wouldn't touch as a firm and or are meant to maximize your time, right, from redundant processes where you're continuing to do things. So those could be really good test cases. The issue that I have been advising sites about specifically, vendors is different. I have to figure out, if you're a vendor, how are you using AI? Do these regulations apply to you? Do we need to have statements, compliance around it, et cetera? But as a site, as long as you're checking your vendors and as long as you understand, especially under R3, but you already had this right before, it's just more codified now, you always have the right to go back to a sponsor and say like, look, I'm not so sure about this vendor. They're not validated. I don't think they're following this latest AI guidance, et cetera. But beyond that, your biggest risk at the site is actually your staff plugging a protocol into ChatGPT. I'm not really that, like I said, as long as you have a vendor management system and you are serious about checking anyone who's coming in your space and what they do and so on. Beyond that, what I'm really worried about is your staff. And it won't be on purpose. It will be a slip. It will be, I just plugged this into ChatGPT to write a quick email so I could get something else done. I just didn't understand a word. So I copy pasted something from an email into ChatGPT. But if you don't have enterprise privacy, you just put something proprietary and confidential, which is a breach of contract. And I guarantee you, especially at larger organizations and site networks, it's happening whether you know it or not. So it's like, are you training your staff about this? Are you having a policy around this for your staff to understand that we don't do this? Are you making sure and checking? I mean, I hate to say it, but one of the firms I worked at was deeply into cybersecurity, and we would intentionally fish our own staff and see if you failed. And if you failed more than twice, it was a performance issue because, I mean, this is what we do. We're in compliance. And so it's not meant to be mean or punitive, but there has to be a mechanism by which you are advising your staff what they can and can't do. And to be fair, for most organizations, just pay for the business privacy model. It is worth the whatever it is, $20 a month to just, doesn't matter. Anything they put in there doesn't go out to the model, blocked, done. Like, and then train them and have a policy and call it a day. And then check, obviously audit and check. But I know not everybody does that, and I get it. And it's no different than in HIPAA, right? Where, you have a famous patient come to the hospital, everybody wants to go digging in the medical records. You have to send out a reminder. We're not going to do that. It's the same thing with AI. It's not anything nefarious. It's going to be something like that, where a team member is trying to do something quicker, faster, and unfortunately, it gets in the model, and a sponsor gets real mad and sues you.
Yeah, that's really
That's a
good point.
really, really
And that's
good.
the end. I mean, for a small site, that's the end for you. That's it. You won't survive that.
That's true.
And
Yep.
that sucks. And that wasn't
Yep.
even anything to do with your actual clinical trial conduct. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right,
that wasn't
right.
anything to do with your
Yeah.
patient or the safety, whether the drug worked. Like, so don't let it be that. Don't let it be that. Like, that's something you can prevent. Don't let it be that.
There you go. Yeah. I think, as you mentioned, we would be worrying about so much HIPAA and all of that, which we should, but then AI is right in that. And sometimes without knowing, you might be not following the regulations.
Exactly.
So,
Same privacy
that's really good point.
concerns. Yep.
Yep.
100%. 100%.
Awesome.
So, well, thank you for having me
Thank you,
today.
Edye.
I'm so grateful
This-
for the time. I love the work that you guys are doing. I can't wait to continue to watch you guys grow. And you got to keep that good content coming out, because I look for it every day.
Thank you. And hopefully we'll see you here in Dallas sometime. I know we talked about
Yes.
maybe sometime in February, but
Oh, I have an excuse.
Yeah.
I have so much family in Dallas. Don't tell them. They'd be mad. They'd be like, why aren't you here? So no, we will come up with an excuse.
No.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
All right.
Alrighty.
Well,
Thank you so much. Have a nice
thank
weekend.
you.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye.